On the next episode of Just Seen It, we review Sylvester Stallone's new action thriller, Bullet to the Head.
This guy, no, he doesn't look like one of your usual low-life buddies.
The cop made the mistake of saving his life.
It tells the story of a hitman and a police officer who team up to find out who killed their respective partners.
The documentary about Israel's Secret Service, the Gatekeepers.
התוצאה של פיצוץ הכיפה, גם היום, יכול לגרום למלחמה טוטלית של כל מדינות האסלאם, לא רק מדינות ערביות.
These guys who are so high up, who are in charge of doing a lot of the things that people criticize Israel for, are saying everybody's wrong, we need to figure this out.
The zombie romance, Warm Bodies.
Having a lead character, like Nicholas Hoult, who's supposed to be a charismatic zombie figure, having that work, that goes a long way for me.
The action thriller, Parker.
I just mean, how do you sleep at night?
I don't drink coffee after 7.
It's that it takes the tropes of traditional action films and then throws in tropes of romantic comedies and broad comedies, and it has a muddled tone that doesn't always work.
And the new comedy, Identity Thief.
Now we're gonna have a little chat. Okay? And we can do it the hard way, or we can do it the easy way.
I'd like to pick the easy way.
And she's a professional thief. She steals Sandy's identity, and she proceeds to rack up huge amounts of charges on his credit card.
Coming up next on Just Seen It. A hitman and a cop have their partners viciously murdered.
My partner was clipped.
You gave me your word. You're getting out of that business.
So they team up to find out who ordered both hits.
I'm not interested in some disposable hired hitter. I want the guys who took out your partner.
But seeking revenge is never easy.
I can't let you go on some killing spree!
In Bullet to the Head.
Hi, I'm Sean. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Liz, and we're here to talk about the newest film from Rocky Rambo, Mr. Expendable himself, Sylvester Stallone, Bullet to the Head. We've all just seen it. What do you guys think?
Bullet to the Head has some problems. I like seeing Stallone back. It's fun, but the script is weird.
It's not so good.
It's not
hard
so
to
good.
follow.
I mean, it's not terrible. It's just we don't really know what the bad guys want. And this script is an adaptation of a French graphic novel. And
what's the name of that graphic novel, Eric?
Diplôme dans la tête, actually.
Basically, Bullet to the Head in French.
Yes, and it tells the story of a hitman and a police officer who team up to find out who killed their respective partners.
And you telling me that explains the through line of the movie to me, because watching the movie, I was like, why are they together? And I think that the script just shoves everything together so quickly in an effort to get to the action.
Yeah. I mean, it really felt like Walter Hill, who's the director, and he's a talented director, he's made a lot of good movies, knew he didn't have a very good script, and he sort of rushes us through it as quickly as possible so that we don't sit there and go, what is going on?
Why did this happen?
I still did
This happened, but we still did.
Yeah, and there are some funny buddy action moments between Kang and Stallone. It's really fun to see their back and forth, and I think that was definitely something that helped the picture.
You don't just kill a guy like that!
I just did.
Sung Kang plays Taylor Kwan, who's
the DC cop who plays by the rules.
Right, the
Yeah.
counterpart to Stallone.
Yes.
And I thought his performance was good, but as a character, I couldn't understand why he was so angry at Stallone all the time, even though Stallone's always saving him, no matter what.
The real answer to that is that that's the buddy cop genre, or the buddy action genre, if you will, is that they have to be in some kind of opposition to each other. Here, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense all the time why they're opposing each other, other than one's a hitman and one's a cop. But I did like Sung Kang. I mean, he's been in the last few Fast and Furious pictures, and I thought that added an interesting dynamic to an action picture. You had Kang, who has a Korean background, and you have Stallone, who has an Italian background, and their back and forth really made this something unique.
You're one of them phone guys, huh?
I can't do my job without it. You know, I could use this as a weapon. I could jam your throat, hit your temple, bang, you'd be toast.
And I just sit there, right?
In general, the cast is a multicultural cast, which is interesting because the script itself has a lot of disregard of political correctness. So it's this nice tension between like actually going for a diverse cast and then making fun of the diversity that is involved.
We should talk about Jason Momoa.
Keegan!
The villain Keegan, yes.
Khal Drogo himself.
Yes.
Or Conan the Barbarian.
He's a special forces type Green Beret guy who loves killing people and does it very well. And he's the best villain. There are 3 villains in this movie, and the other 2 aren't that great, but he's awesome. He's evil, he doesn't say much, he's big and imposing, and he has an ease about him when he's in action scenes and fighting people.
Oh! Ouch. You okay?
Let's talk about Sly. I mean, sure, he's got his own movie again that's not The Expendables. And listen, he's good at what he does. He's an action superstar, and he's called on to do a professional job, and he does.
And he sort of makes fun of himself, too, throughout the film. You know, his one-liners are very reminiscent of his 80s one-liners, and he's not afraid to poke fun at himself.
The movie itself is obsessed with Sylvester Stallone. I mean, we go back into the character of Jimmy Bobo's history, and we see this array of mugshots, and they're really just stills from
his
Rambo and Rocky.
He's one from First Blood, yeah.
The character is a loner and is a little bit down the dirt sometimes, and I think that his physicality right now that he has works with the role.
So Walter Hill directed the picture. We've already mentioned his name. 48 Hours, of course, also The Warriors, Streets of Fire. So he's a veteran of the action genre. It's not his best film, that's for sure. Yeah. 48 Hours was a better buddy action film. But, you know...
Eddie Murphy, man.
Eddie Murphy. But he's got some talented cast members, so he does a good job there. He does input some style that I found interesting. Basically, I believe he knew he had a bad script and said, I got to inject some kind of energy in there. And he does through some editing techniques that are interesting.
The choreography and the fighting is directed very well. It seems like Walter Hill knows what he's doing in that regard.
Basically, there are a lot of action films that are coming out right now. This film has the best performances and the best camera and the best direction out of all 3 of those films, The Last Stand, Parker, and Bullet to the Head. It's just the script that really is hard to get through.
While the movie does have some script problems, it's fun to see Stallone, and it's better than a bullet to the head. So I'm going to say stream it.
Bullet to the Head hits you hard and fast with its style and great performances. However, the story problems make it not worth a trip to the theater. So I say, stream it.
Although there are some real problems with the way that the story unfolds, Bullet to the Head is a fun action movie that's worth a watch at home. Stream it.
Cheers.
Hey, yo.
Yo!
Ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
כל שנה אנחנו סיכלנו יותר. כל שנה אנחנו השגנו יותר ביטחון.
As Israel's Secret Service, Shin Bet is charged with the fight against terror. In this documentary, director Dror Murray interviews 6 former heads of the revered agency.
אם צריך אפילו נהרוג את זה שקם להורגנו.
Together, they look back at decades of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in The Gatekeepers.
Hi, I'm Brenna.
I'm Liz.
And I'm Sean, and we're here to talk about The Gatekeepers, an Academy Award-nominated documentary from director Dror Murray. We've all just seen it.
So it's an incredibly dense film. It's sometimes difficult to follow, but it's fascinating.
If you don't know your Israeli history, it's easy to get lost. They start with the Six-Day War in 1967, and they talk about certain terrorist attacks. Since then, there were times when I said, okay, wait a minute, I don't exactly know what they're talking about here, and they don't necessarily introduce it well enough for me to know the timeline. I did find myself a little frustrated at trying to put pieces together of exactly what was going on. But maybe, I mean, that's probably a lot like what's going on in the Middle East. It's hard to piece things together.
I know people who are well-versed in world politics, and still, the Israeli-Palestine conflict is very confusing even for them.
Well, and to make things even more complicated, each of these former heads of the Shin Bet have their own perspective to why we're in the scenario that we are today. You know, why we're still at war, why we've never achieved peace, why it seems so impossible. You get these like subtle hints to how they feel about certain events. Like they interview Abraham Shalom, And he got in trouble in the 80s because of a terrorist incident and how he reacted to it. And hearing his personal perspective on what happened is really interesting.
Particularly since this is the first time that Avraham Shalom has ever spoken publicly about this incident.
Right.
This is the Kav 300. It was when some terrorists hijacked a bus in Tel Aviv. And essentially what happened was the security forces ended up beating 2 of the terrorists to death when they were already in custody. And Avraham Shalom had to resign over it. But hearing him speak about it and hear the decisions he had to make where he's like, yeah, kill them. Morality doesn't exist in these situations.
Right.
Hearing that kind of thing is extremely fascinating, at the same time kind of scary.
They interview one of the members of the Shin Bet, and he says, now that I'm retired, I feel differently. But when I was there, when I was in the heat of the moment, you feel like there's only one path you can take.
Yeah, he actually said, now that I'm retired, I'm a leftist.
יש פה משהו לא טבעי במצב הזה. משהו הלא טבעי הזה זה בעצם הכוח שיש לך לקחת מ3 אנשים, מחבלים, כן? אבל לקחת ככה את החיים שלהם בשנייה.
I've heard people discuss this in the same way before, and even though you're left with people who are major players in it, I still left the movie going, there's still no viable options to me. I'm still at a loss as to what happens now, and just because we have people who are high up in the organization telling me this doesn't really change anything.
It's unique that it's coming from these guys. That's really the important part of this film, is that it's these guys who are so high up, who are in charge of doing a lot of the things that people criticize Israel for, are saying everybody's wrong, we need to figure this out.
I feel like I'm getting a whole view on, it's not just one group, it's not just one group of people, it's multiple factions that are...
Which is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So the story is split up into 7 chapters. Each title is chaptered after something profound that one of the interviewees said. For example, there's a chapter called "One Man's Terrorist is Another Man's Freedom Fighter." And it was apparently, according to Dror Murray, that was his outline before he even interviewed anybody. He had a very clear vision about where he wanted to go with this.
He definitely goes in with a specific point of view on it. I did feel at times that he said, this is what I'm thinking beforehand, like you said, with these chapters, and I'm not going to let anything go. This is where I'm going to skew the movie to go to. Even some of the questions he asked people, I felt like, even Avraham Shalom, they were leading questions. It's okay to be not objective or not attempt to be objective, that's fine. But there were things that I wanted to know about that I felt like he wasn't interested in bringing to the fold.
You can hear the questions of our filmmaker, Dror Murray, and it's so frustrating because they're not open-ended, they're not left to be interpreted. He's very clearly expounding upon his own point of view and asking these questions.
Right.
In that same vein, documentaries are written beforehand. That is what the process is in pre-production. There is a script that is written even before you get to the interviews. And so it does make sense that he has this bias as a filmmaker in this footage.
True. Though sometimes you can go in with a certain point of view, learn something new, and it could change over the course of what you're doing.
We didn't really hear him very often. It was only like 2 or 3 instances where we heard him in the background where he asked somebody for clarification or he asked a leading question. But since we only heard him very little, it made me wonder what other questions he asked to get the responses that he did get.
While I'm not sure this film is worthy of an Academy Award, I do think it's necessary viewing considering the unprecedented interviews with these members of the Shin Bet. So I have to say, see it.
Though sometimes this film is hard to follow, I feel that the insight gained from interviewing these 6 individuals is very valuable. So I say, see it.
This is a very impressive film that takes a controversial topic and stays middle of the road, not blaming any one side, but instead calling for peace. I think everybody should see it.
Cheers!
I wish I could introduce myself, but I don't remember my name. I think it started with an R. That's all I have left. It's kind of a bummer. I shouldn't be so hard on myself. I mean, we're all dead. This is my best friend. We even have almost conversations sometimes. Nice watch.
Hi, I'm Aaron.
I'm Brenna.
And I'm also Aaron. And today we're here to do a quick review of the new zombie romantic comedy, Warm Bodies. We've all just seen it. Brenna, take it away.
Yeah, so Warm Bodies is a romantic comedy with zombies. It's about a beautiful living girl and a beautiful dead boy who end up falling in love. And the story has some similarities to Twilight in that it's a traditional monster falling in love with a human. It's also got some similarities to Romeo and Juliet. The lead's name is the lead lady's name is Julie, and there's even a scene with a balcony. But thankfully, that's where the similarities stop. This is not a horribly unhealthy relationship that ends in everybody dying in tragedy.
The less Twilight, the better, let's be honest.
Yeah. This film also appeals to multiple demographics. I think that the Twilight fans will love it, and I think the people who hate Twilight will also love it. On top of that, the tone of this film is absolutely spot on. It makes things like eating brains seem sweet.
Yeah, I agree. I really like the tone of this film, and I'm a big fan of classic zombie movies in general, and I'm certainly a big stickler on the rules of said zombie movies. So
yeah, I am too. I'm full Romero school all the way.
Yeah, so going into a movie where you have a zombie falling in love with a human, like, it's kind of stretching things a bit, but I was able to fall in love with the charms of this movie. I really liked what it was going for, and I felt it accomplished it effectively. And, having a lead character, like Nicholas Hoult, who's supposed to be a charismatic zombie figure, having that work, that goes a long way for me.
Nicholas Hoult does a wonderful job of being a slow-moving zombie. He has bad posture, he speaks very slowly, and his inner monologue, the voiceover that we hear throughout the film, is very funny and adds to us appreciating him as a character.
What am I doing with my life? I just want to connect. Why can't I connect with people? Oh, right. It's because I'm dead.
And it's just such a quirky movie. I really don't know how else to describe it other than to say it's quirky, because most zombie movies are not like this at all. And if you are a fan of zombie movies, or even if you had any interest in seeing it at all, I think it's going to appeal to you. It's definitely a movie made for its demographic. And of course, I have to mention Rob Corddry, who plays M, Nicholas Hoult's character's best friend, and he may not be the most convincing zombie, but he does have some of the best lines in the picture.
It's very funny, yeah.
The true zombie fan in me is mad at me for liking this movie, but I can't help it. I loved it. See it.
It's a romantic comedy with zombies. It's no Shaun of the Dead, but I really enjoyed this film. I say see it.
I agree with you both. Warm Bodies is very quirky and very charming, and Rob Corddry is quite hilarious, so I will also say see it. All right, cheers.
Cheers.
I guess we warmed up to this movie.
Brains.
A thief is left for dead by his crew after refusing to be part of a robbery.
You came as advertised, but I'm gonna need the whole score for this next thing.
We made a deal.
Out of revenge, he tracks them down with the help of an insider.
Who the hell are you? Parker.
Together, they plan to stop the crew's newest heist in Parker.
Hi, I'm Liz.
I'm Leah.
And I'm Sean, and we're here to give you a quick review on Parker, the new film starring Jason Statham, directed by Taylor Hackford. We've all just seen it. Liz, what's your take?
Well, it's a film about dishonor amongst thieves, and Jason Statham plays our ultimate anti-hero. He's all about follow-through, guys. I mean, everything's about follow-through. I feel like from the trailer to like every 5 minutes he mentions, well, they didn't follow through, and I always follow through.
Gotta get his money back.
Man's gotta have, principles. Gotta stand for something,
but
right?
He has principles to like a comedic degree, to an absurd degree, and I think that's what this film is that it takes the tropes of traditional action films and then throws in tropes of romantic comedies and broad comedies, and it has a muddled tone that doesn't always work, but I like the attempt.
But, it's a solid revenge narrative heist movie that has a lot in common with 70s heist movies. I just think that Hackford wasn't clear on what he wanted to have happen in those shifting tonal moments.
I generally like Jason Statham. Most of the time he's not in great films, but he's in films that I think are pretty entertaining.
Right.
This one, not so much for me. I felt like it was occasionally entertaining, but not very often. You've got Jennifer Lopez in this movie as well, and I didn't buy her in this role. She's playing this woman in Florida who's desperately wants to go on dates with this Jason Statham guy who she finds out very quickly. She's a divorcee. She finds out very quickly that he's a criminal, and it doesn't seem to make any difference to her whatsoever.
People in Palm Beach are sharp, very sharp. And people like you only come down here for one reason, money. And I don't know what you're into, kidnapping, extortion, robbery. But whatever it is, you're gonna need somebody who knows the territory. Or you're gonna get caught.
Take off your clothes.
But there's no heat between them either. He's got a girlfriend on the side, so you're kind of going, is
There are a
this
lot of
ever really
problems.
going to happen with Jennifer Lopez? And it doesn't.
Well, you have some untapped character arcs with Jennifer Lopez's character, with Bobby Cannavale's character. Her objective as a character goes from wanting love to wanting money. I mean, there's a lot of things that aren't fully fleshed out.
When I saw the cast, I thought, oh, this might give us something new and different, right? So in addition to Jennifer Lopez and Bobby Cannavale and Jason Statham, we've got Nick Nolte, we had Michael Chiklis, we had Wendell Pierce, and then it fails to deliver.
Taylor Hackford has given us good movies like Ray, Officer and a Gentleman. His style, it's just kind of all over the place.
But he
at
also
times.
gave us The Devil's Advocate, but it is an uneven film.
Sure,
you know.
but there's these flashbacks that seem to only show up at the beginning of the movie
Right,
and
and what
never
happened?
come
Where'd they
back
go?
ever again. And it's just, it seems like there are things in the script you should have noticed.
So if you love action films, Parker is a goofy little romp into the genre. However, it doesn't do anything particularly commendable. And so I'm going to split the difference and give it a stream it.
There are other films that do a much better job of telling this story, and you should make an effort to see those, such as History of Violence or even Boondock Saints. Parker is a skip it.
Jason Statham and Taylor Hackford have just given us much better. Skip it.
Well, looks like our votes add up to a half ticket, which is a skip it for Parker.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I agree. It's a skip it.
To Jason Statham.
Sandy's life is ruined after Diana steals his identity.
What the hell is this?
If I had to guess, this is the person who stole your identity.
To save his job, Sandy must travel to Florida to apprehend her.
Get over here and give me your ribs.
Okay.
Now, I have a plan.
But the road back to justice is never an easy one. In Identity Thief.
Hi, I'm David.
I'm Rachel. And I'm Salim, and we're here to talk about Identity Thief, the new road movie by Seth Gordon. We've all just seen it. David, why don't you start us off?
It stars Jason Bateman as Sandy, who's a very nice family guy, and he's an accountant, and Diana is played by Melissa McCarthy, and she is a professional thief. She steals Sandy's identity, and she proceeds to rack up huge amounts of charges on his credit card, and she actually gets arrested and gets thrown in jail. And so the setup, like I said, is great, but it's just the premise that's ridiculous. And the premise is essentially that Jason Bateman's character of Sandy finds out who Diana is, and the only way he can save his job as a VP at this big new company he's been hired at is to bring Diana back from Florida to Denver. Makes no sense.
It makes absolutely no sense.
You've got a premise that's ridiculous, but then the movie isn't ridiculous. So,
Right.
so now you have something that's a little bit awkward. Like, if we had just an over-the-top, broad comedy, then I'd be willing to go with anything. But we have these moments that are a little bit peaking in terms of over-the-top, and then we've got, sort of grounded believability. So it's a little jarring.
I know, I completely agree. I feel like the problem with this movie is that it straddles a line between trying to be extremely funny and just completely run-of-the-mill. Because the script doesn't really give the audience or even the characters that much to work with. Going along with flimsy premises, we have other two-word titles. We have Horrible Bosses, we have Hall Pass, we have Four Christmases. They all have a very flimsy premise, but trying to make it seem funny with the characters.
Right.
And it's the same thing in this movie, too.
After the first 15 or 20 minutes, you either go with it or you don't. And for me, I went with it because of the amazing performances of our two lead characters. Not only do they have wonderful ad-libs in this movie, but the first time that they meet, they beat the snot out of each other for the first time 5 or 10 minutes, which is really hilarious. And the bottom line is that this is a comedy, and for the most part, it's a really funny movie.
Stay down! Stay down!
The acting is the best part of this film, like you've all been saying.
They save it.
And because it's really about performance versus story. And for the most part, the story just is not there. And you can imagine Melissa McCarthy or Jason Bateman looking at the script. They're like, it's all right, no. I know exactly what this scene needs. We're going to make it funny. Just move out the way. We got it.
Right.
Get these shoes at the same place you got the pants?
No. Yeah. Clerk said an EMT took him off a dead hobo, so.
Come on.
He's not gonna need him back, so.
Guy died in these?
Good fit, huh?
He's playing what could be a very stereotypical role, but he's playing it in a very real, very personable way. Because he's this accountant, he is supposed to be the doormat. You never feel like he has some actor-y physicality or like he's taking on a voice or doing something to be mousy. He is a regular guy, very relatable, who happens to sort of fit into this stereotypical niche.
And what I loved about his character especially is that his character arcs so well.
Yeah.
He's a completely different character from the beginning to the end of the movie.
And you believe it.
You completely believe it.
And as for Melissa McCarthy as Diana,
sure,
she really is a con artist, and she's very good at what she does, and she seems to have no moral compulsions about what she does as well. And you kind of find out later on why she's the way she is.
And what's great too is that like you have these movies where it's, oh, she's such a bad character, and then, oh, she's a good character in the end. And
No.
it's like this hokey sort of turn of events.
And
but
you
here,
don't have that in
You
this
don't
movie.
have that. Because she's still got some of these wicked things that she does all the way through.
And a lot of times it really gets them out of trouble.
And even in the beginning, like there is some kindness that comes through, and it doesn't seem like it's manufactured. It seems really genuine, especially by the end of the movie. Her character makes sense, and you don't hate her.
There are some nice supporting roles. You have Eric Stonestreet from Modern Family, who plays a heterosexual and does a pretty good job at it.
This must be Walter. Hello. Howdy, Walt. I'm Big Chuck.
Hi there.
I gotta tell you, this little Margie is quite a lady.
I love that they have T.I. in this movie.
Really?
And I'll tell you why.
Do you?
He surprised me because he did not suck. I was expecting to hate him in every single scene, be shaking my head like, no T.I., you do not belong in a comedy. But surprisingly, he elicited some laughs.
It makes our work much easier.
What kind of work?
That's our work. Oh. Very traditional. You know what I'm saying, Chuck?
They're going to put your quote on the movie poster. Surprisingly, he did not suck. I think we need to talk about the director now, Seth Gordon. He's done a lot of TV stuff, including Modern Family, oddly enough. And I think that he kind of knows to get out of the way of his two actors. He tries to reel them in every once in a while, but for the most part, he balances the tone of the movie. You don't feel like things shift wildly.
I've seen his very first film as a documentary, probably one of my favorite documentaries of all time, called King of Kong, which is basically a documentary about a guy trying to get the world record for Donkey Kong.
Oh, okay. I've heard of it. Haven't seen it.
It's a very nerd movie, but what's fascinating is that he is able to make a really interesting movie about something that probably a lot of people don't care about.
No.
And what made it interesting is it's about these two characters in this movie. And you can see in this movie that that's his strength. Two characters that carry a movie and that really are funny and that are playing off of each other.
Despite its ridiculous premise, this movie is saved by the hilarious comedic performances of Melissa McCarthy and Jason Bateman. I give it a see it.
This film is good, but it doesn't reach the level of slapstick humor to make it truly great. I'm giving it a stream it.
A weak story and flimsy plot is saved by the wonderful comic timing of Jason Bateman and Melissa McCarthy. See it.
Our votes add up to 2.5 tickets, which is a see it for Identity Thief. Right. Cheers.
I'll drink to that.
I'll drink to that. On our next episode, we welcome the return of John McClane with the 5th installment in the franchise, A Good Day to Die Hard. We discuss side effects from director Steven Soderbergh, and we review the fantastical drama, Beautiful Creatures. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.
I've tried for 5 Easter eggs already, and that's our Easter egg.